Welcome to Australia. Let me be the first one to congratulate and getting your first job here in Australia after all that hard work. But let me be the first one to warn you about the mistakes that I made moving to Australia back in 2006. The first few days, weeks, months, or even the first year could be very hard. So in this video, I'm going to address some crucial issues that must be addressed whilst you're moving, how to set your life up in a hassle-free manner. So without further ado, let's jump. Oh, hang on. It's a video about Australia, so I think we should go outdoors and talk about it in a much more appropriate fashion. So without further ado, let's jump right into it in the great outdoors. Beautiful day right behind me. I am in Double Bay in Sydney. Let's assume you've been offered a job in Australia. Finally, all your hard work, your exams, your applications and interview have materialized into this excellent result of getting your first job in Australia. Now, what are the essential things that you must do right before coming to Australia and as soon as you arrive in Australia? I flew here directly from the UK and I made quite a few mistakes, and I want you to learn from this video and not make those mistakes. Number one thing is that you have to make sure that you buy private health insurance. And you can search the private health insurance in Australia. The leading providers are Medibank or HCF. They're not sponsoring this video. You can Google search any of the health insurance provider for yourself and for your family before moving to Australia. As a visitor or as a doctor starting in Australia, you would not be covered for Medicare, which is a publicly funded healthcare system only meant for permanent residents and Australian citizens. Number two, you must also ensure that you have got a booking reservation. That is for your accommodation. The initial transition accommodation, when you're booking in from overseas, you should book in through Airbnb, Gumtree. You can even book through Facebook ads. So have a look, make sure that you book that accommodation near to the hospital so you don't have to travel far because you won't have a car. And once you've stayed in that accommodation, then you can go out and look for a more formal and more proper accommodation for your family, which would be a 2-bedroom apartment, and then you can move around relatively well. There is a stiff competition around the rental market here in Sydney or major capital cities. So apply for a lot of them, make sure that you shortlist quite a few, and then go and visit those. The other thing, when you're coming from overseas, just make sure that you book in airport transport. There are specific airport transfer services in Sydney, in Melbourne, and also the regional towns connecting these major cities. So for example, Wollongong, there might be airport transport services that you need to look into, and they provide a very good and cheap rates for picking you up from the airport and bringing you to the area by a prepaid SIM card. There are two leading providers, there's Telstra and there's Yes Optus, and the rest of the providers are just a subsidiary for them. Unlimited local and national calls, so you can make calls, and trust me, you will be making a lot of calls to the hospital, to the accommodation, booking in the appointments and all that. And also make sure that it has got reasonable data. At least I think 30 GB of data per month is reasonable, because you might not have an initial internet and you would need internet. Lots of the processes are online, so you can tether your phone or use your phone as a hotspot to apply for those processes. A prepaid card which provides you with unlimited local and national call, perhaps even some international calls. There are cards which can provide that, especially to India and Bangladesh, UK and some of the other countries, not to Pakistan unfortunately, and at least 30 to 50 GB of data, so you can get yourself set up for an internet once you're initially getting settled in to get a more formal broadband or high-speed internet at your premises. When you're moving from overseas, people used to bring cash or traveler's check. Now this is a modern day and age. You can have your bank debit card, which would work just as fine here in Australia. If you don't have a bank debit card or if you're worried about, there's another app which I've come across. It's called Wise, W-I-S-E. Again, they're not sponsoring this video, but what they do is that you get a card and you can top up that card with your own funds in any currency. So you can top up some in dirhams, you can top up in rupees, you can top up in pounds or even Australian dollars. So that app provides you that flexibility of using that card to shop around. I would say initially top up about $4,000 to $5,000. That would last you for at least a month. You need to also open up a bank account. Now, bank account, you can apply for a bank account whilst being overseas in Pakistan, India or Bangladesh. But you need to still come into the bank branch here in Australia. I would suggest to choose a bank which has got the most ATM. So if you ever need to draw out cash, Australia has become more and more cashless, but you would still need cash for some odd things. So they've got the most amount of ATM and they've got most amount of branches. So if you've got any trouble at all, then the bank is easily accessible. There are 4 banks, Commonwealth Bank, Westpac Bank, ANZ Bank and I think St. George. My suggestion would be to book in through Commonwealth Bank, and just because I think they're the largest bank and they've got the most ATMs and they've got the most branches, and all of the overseas migrant students and also the doctors tend to open up their accounts in Commonwealth Bank. Once you arrive in here, you need to apply for what we call a tax file number. So once your hospital contract will come through and they're setting up your salary, they would ask you to apply for tax file number. Now you can jump onto the tax website, Australian Tax Office, which is ATO. Some of the people would have had their job offer in regions, but obviously you'd be landing in a capital city. My suggestion would be not to directly fly to the region. Some of you would be coming to Australia for the first time or second time. It's often better to land in a major city like Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and spend a couple of days in the major city. Look around, involve yourself, get to know the culture. And then after a few days or even perhaps a week, you can then travel to the regional area where the job is offered. Make sure you bring your international driver's license, which is valid, which is active. So if you're working in a region, you would need a car because the distance here in Australia are huge and public transport often in the regional areas is not very good. So it's important that you buy a car if you're living in a region, and even in major cities, sometimes if you're living on the periphery of the major cities, you would need a car. One very important advice I'd like to give you, that just make sure that you go and search website gumtree.com.au. I know when you're coming from overseas, there'll be a lot of expenses. If you've found yourself a rental accommodation of 2-bed apartment, you would need a bed, you would need a sofa, you need a fridge, washing machine, the cutlery, lots of things. And they can be very expensive. If you're coming from overseas, you won't have that level of funding and you won't have level of money. Gumtree is also a website where lots of people sell their semi-used or used stuff, which is in pretty good condition. When I came to Australia, I actually bought my refrigerator and washing machine for Gumtree, which lasted me years, and then I only had to upgrade them because I bought new. And the prices could be like, you can buy a big washing machine for only $50 or a big fridge for about a couple of $100 as opposed to thousands of dollars. And these are the private people who are selling their stuff because they're moving and they no longer need that stuff. The tricky situation is sometimes they don't deliver, but there are ways around it. You can hire handyman, also from Gumtree, to pick up a stuff from that seller and deliver it to you. There's also a website called Service Seeking. So if you need to move or relocate, if you need some stuff moved from the sellers to your new accommodation, then these people can come and do that service for you. So Gumtree is a very good website to set you up in Australia when you're coming in. In this day and age, there are Facebook groups of large migrant community belonging to your own country, from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Start asking questions, start asking for a bit of an advice on these chat groups or chat rooms or Facebook groups, and you'll get plenty of first-hand advice from them. And that's very important because they would give you the region-specific information which is important for you. Leaving home country can be a particularly difficult time of your life. You've got loved ones that you're probably going to be leaving for a very long time. You've got paperwork in terms of organizing for a visa, document. There's a lot going on at that time. And I think it's very important that you don't lose the foresight of how you're going to land and organize yourself. I think this little video is just to give you a little glimpse of what to look out for, because these are the very things which can get caught out and can cause a lot of frustration and anguish, especially if you're moving with the family. And my biggest advice in this whole scenario is try come alone first and the foremost. Set yourself up, set the whole house up, and then bring your family. It'll be cheaper, it'll be cost effective, it'll also reduce much of the anxiety for the young family as well. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, show your appreciation in the work that I do, and that will help me make more such content for you. Thank you very much. Look after yourself and each other. Take care. Bye.